Gyan Timirandasya Gyanajana Salakaya Chaksu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mom Vishnu Badaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pastyatya De Satarine Panchakalpa Tarubhischa Kripa Sindhu Pevacha Titanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'm a little bit overwhelmed with the service of trying to glorify and speak about such a personality who is known throughout the world as a person who did so much to spread Krishna consciousness and entered the hearts of so many devotees in such a way that he inspired them to take up Krishna consciousness simply by his personal presence. Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaja was a Vaikuntha man. He was a person who spoke about Srila Prabhupada constantly. His love for Prabhupada, his dedication to his service to Srila Prabhupada, his association with Prabhupada and how he took that association as the greatest thing in his development in Krishna consciousness. You might say he was a Prabhupada man in a real sense of the word. I remember I was at one of his Vyasa Puja ceremonies. This was in Italy, in Milano, Hare Krishna Villaggio. I think it was about 10 years ago. And I had attended Maharaja's Vyasa Puja. And there were many, many, many devotees who had come to glorify their spiritual master, Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj. And it went on. Person after person were coming up and speaking the glories of Maharaj, their love, their dedication, what he had given them. And I remember at the end, Bhakti Charu Maharaj said, I think now on, every year, rather than having this ceremony in such a way as I become the center, we want to make it a Prabhupada festival. So every year we should speak about Prabhupada, glorify Prabhupada, emphasize what Srila Prabhupada has given us. Let's keep Prabhupada in the center. He pushed himself to the side in such a way that he wanted to show us where we could understand him and also practice Krishna consciousness as was given to us by Srila Prabhupada. My association with Maharaj was not very much, but it was sweet at each of those events that I had. I remember and Maharaj, he was so sweet, so loving, so friendly. Every time he would see us, he would come and give us a hug, ask you, how are you? Where have you come from? It wasn't just some etiquette or some ceremony with as graciousness. He genuinely cared for each and every person. It was deep. You could feel it when he was with you. He was always concerned how you were and what you were doing. It was very personal, very loving, very concerned. And Maharaj was known in that way. Such a compassionate, caring, loving person. But at the same time, we see he was also quite powerful in his preaching. He understood clearly what Srila Prabhupada's mission was and how to carry it out. I remember I was with him in the year 2001, and this was in Chicago. Maharaj would come regularly into Chicago, and he had many disciples there. And that was exactly the same time when the what they call it, 9/11, when those airplanes hit the Twin Towers, and of course there was controversy about that whole thing, but everything exploded in the United States. It was looking like we were on the verge of war, and now things had shut down. All the airports were starting to close. People were worried about terrorists, and we were together. We were watching the whole event on the television. And after it was over, we were talking about it, and then he mentioned he has some travels, some places to go immediately. He couldn't stay in Chicago after that. I said to him, Maharaj, now things are getting very restricted. There's a lot of security, and travel is quite precarious, even dangerous. I don't think it's a good time for travel. I mentioned that. He looked at me like, you're speaking a foreign language. He looked straight at me like, with great, focus. He said, a coward dies 1,000 deaths, a hero dies once. So there's nothing else I could say after that. I understood that he was going to continue his service despite what the situation was in the world at that time. He was so fixed on keeping his service to Srila Prabhupada. And he had many programs coming up, and he wasn't about to give them up for some apparent difficulty. That was Maharaj. Here, I remember we were, when we first opened the temple in the year, I think it was 2006 or 7? 2004? What year was the temple open? 6. Yeah, 2006, Nityananda's appearance day. And it was a wonderful festival. And devotees were so happy, and it was just the kirtan was going on, and everybody. Now this beautiful temple had opened. Maharaj had worked so hard. And as it's described, if we go back into the history, we see how he personally got involved in the construction, making sure everything was going on to the best capacity, making sure the materials were there, things were working out, getting the permission to do what he had to do to build this temple. Maharaj it was like he had expanded himself into so many different personalities just to make everything happen. And it was such a joyous festival. And I remember during the evening, there was a kirtan. And I sometimes I'm a little bit outside of the proper etiquette. So not sometimes, but anyway. So there was a kirtan, and Maharaj was there, and he was enjoying the kirtan. So I grabbed him and I put my arm around him, and I pulled him in, and we started dancing together. And at first he looked at me, and then he completely surrendered to the dancing. We were just dancing and dancing and dancing. And I can still remember how, at first he was so surprised, but when he, somehow or other, he just got into the dance, and we were just dancing together. And for me, that was such an experience of happiness and joy, and being with such a personality in Lord Chaitanya's movement. Another incident in my life with him, which was very significant, was when this was actually going back into the 1980s. I was the pujari at Srila Prabhupada's palace, and the palace had just opened. So I had been there only a few months and doing pujari work. And Prabhupada's palace was set up in such a way that people would come, and we would give tours to guests. And there was only myself and one other person, Prabhupada's disciple, Nandu Kumara. He was the cook, and there was one cleaner that would come to clean throughout the day. So many times I would stop my services to meet the guests, welcome the guests, show them around, explain who Srila Prabhupada was, what this palace actually signifies. So one time Bhakti Charu came, and I had never met him before. I had heard about him. And when he came, he wanted to cook for Prabhupada. So immediately, Kananda Kumara stepped aside, and he allowed Bhakti Charu Maharaj to cook Raj Bhog that day. And I was doing pujari work, taking the offering and putting it on the altar. And I was wondering, who is this person? He seems to be so wonderful, so sweet. He was very friendly to me. I didn't even meet. This is the first time I had ever met him. And so he cooked, and he cooked a grand offering. Nanda Kumara assisted him, and I was there just getting the altar ready. And then he gives me the plate after cooking this huge offering to Srila Prabhupada. And I put it on the altar, and I'm ringing the bell, making the offering, and Maharaj walks onto the altar. And just as I had completed the offering, he's on the altar, he's there taking darshan of Srila Prabhupada. And then he notices on the altar, there's a drum. It's a little, it's like we call it a bongo drum or tom-tom drum, little small drum like this. He looks at the drum, he picks it up, and he embraces the drum. Now, I had seen that drum every day, it was on the altar. And then I'm looking, wow, what is so special about this drum? And finally, he told me, he said, this is the drum that started the Hare Krishna movement in New York City in 1966. The way he responded to seeing that drum was like he had met a long lost friend. It was so sweet. And then, of course, we sat together, we took prasadam, and he had taken off his socks to do the arti and go on to the altar. And he was leaving, he didn't pick up his socks. So I thought, uh-oh, here's my chance. So I stole his socks. I kept them until finally one disciple asked me, can I have the socks? And I said, all right. So that was my first experience with Maharaj. It was so sweet and so loving. Maharaj was just, I mean, I never saw him as my god brother. I saw him as my guru, my spiritual guide. And he was like that. I learned so much from him. And I guess the most important thing that I ever learned was that his kindness and how he related that kindness to his devotees, to his god brothers, to everyone was just amazing to see. How personally he was. He showed us this is Krishna consciousness, to develop that relationship in a personal way with everyone we come in contact. And that is not only the nature of a great soul, but that is actually bringing that person closer to Krishna through that mood of love, that mood of compassion. Maharaj would see me. I would be in Mayapur. I don't want to embarrass anyone, but I'll say something like this. He would always come up to me and say, where's Radhanath Swami? How is he? And sometimes I wouldn't be able to answer, and then sometimes I would. He always wanted to know how Radhanath Swami was, what he was doing, where he is, and like that. So they were so close. I mean, you can see that from the history of their relationship, how close they were. Maharaj explains how They were living together at Maharaj's flat in Mayapur. So he had such deep love for Radhanath Swami. A Vaishnava is like that. A Vaishnava is friendly to everyone, but they also have special relationships with other Vaishnavas. That is their sweet relationship. You see that in the Goswamis also. Although they were preaching to so many, they had so much deep affection for each other that they were practically inseparable. And that was Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj. And when he departed, we were all praying. I mean, the whole world was praying that somehow or other he would get over this attack of this disease. But Krishna had another plan. Sometimes we think in terms of, we look at the material aspects that led up to the whole situation, and we conjecture and we think maybe if it would have happened this way or that way, that. But ultimately, it was Krishna. Krishna took advantage of the situation with him and took him back to Godhead. There's no question about that. Sometimes we say that in a general sense, but in the case of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, he either took him back to Godhead or he took him back to where Srila Prabhupada was, because that was his strongest desire. He was always feeling separation from Srila Prabhupada, and his separation inspired him to do so much to spread Krishna consciousness. Of course, we heard how he translated Prabhupada's books into Bengal, the Bhakti Vedanta series of the life of Srila Prabhupada. When he was in Mayapur, he had started a program to develop health care for the devotees. In Mayapur, there was hardly any concern about the devotees' health. If you got sick, you had to somehow or other do something on your own to find your way out of that sickness. It was difficult. Maharaj actually started a whole fundraising program in order to develop health care for devotees in Mayapur. Maharaj did so much to spread Krishna consciousness. And of course, when he left, I remember my experience. I said, no, didn't happen. Must be some misinformation. It's not possible. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I actually couldn't believe that he left. I was thinking, I'll go to Mayapur and he'll be there. And my feelings, he just entered your heart in such a way that he was such a big part of your life. Everything he did, each time we would meet, everything that he said, it was such inspiration in Krishna consciousness. I mean, what can we say about such a personality as them? He reasons ill who say that Vaishnavas die without a living still, and sound Vaishnavas die to live, and in living spread the holy noun. Maharaj is still here. He exists in the hearts of his devotees. He's there in his instructions. He is there for those who carry out his instructions to spread Krishna consciousness. So thank you all for being here, just to illustrate what Staipi Shakti Mataji said, that yes, all of you actually are wonderful representatives of your spiritual master. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Srila Bhakti.